Greeting. You. Yes, you, sitting in silence. You who never begged for help, never cried for attention, never asked for mercy. You didn't scream. You whispered. And yet, somehow the world flinched. They thought silence meant weakness, that your quiet meant you were losing, that not reacting meant you had nothing left in the tank. But now, they're panicking, because someone, somewhere, lit a fire for you. And they didn't light a candle. They ignited the whole damn system. You never said a word, not one plea, not one explanation. You swallowed every insult, every betrayal, every dagger in the back. You let them write your obituary while you were still breathing. And they thought you were dead. But what they didn't know is that some people don't make noise when they fight. Some people sharpen their pain into precision. Some people turn their silence into strategy. You were the ghost in the hallway, the glitch in their system, the variable they didn't plan for. And now the system, their perfect, polished machine, is burning from the inside out. They don't know who did it. They don't know when it started. All they know is everything's collapsing, and somehow it's because of you. Not because you fought, but because someone else did. Someone watched you suffer. And in your silence, they saw a mirror. They saw themselves. And that was enough. Enough to go to war for you. Enough to flip the table. Enough to strike matches inside a powder room full of secrets. Now, eyes are wide, hands are trembling, leaders are stumbling over their lies, trying to figure out how the game slipped out of their hands and into the shadows. And you still haven't said a word. The moment you chose peace over revenge, someone else chose vengeance on your behalf. And now the system's screaming, files are vanishing, alliances are cracking, voices are shaking. You are not just feared, you are revered. You are remembered in silence and shouted in chaos. Because in a world full of loud cowards, you became the quiet myth. A myth so terrifying, it made monsters switch sides. So go ahead, stay silent. The fire will speak for you now, and still. You never raised your voice, you never begged for understanding. You never defended your name in a room full of cowards who traded their dignity for applause. While they lied, you watched. While they plotted, you waited. While they laughed, you listened. Because deep down, you knew. Real storms never announce themselves. They just arrive. You didn't need validation. You didn't need a stage. You didn't need to prove yourself to people who couldn't even survive what you endured with your mouth shut. You just stood there, still, stoic, silent. And that silence, it echoed. It crawled into their minds at 3 a.m. and made them question every smug word they ever said about you. It haunted the ones who thought they broke you. It infected the halls of every place they whispered your name in vain. You weren't plotting revenge. You weren't keeping score. But someone was. Someone who saw you as more than what they reduced you to. Someone who recognized the weight you carried in silence. Someone who knew that silence is sometimes louder than war drums. And they moved. Without warning, without hesitation, without mercy. Because when power aligns with purpose, when loyalty fuses with rage, and when a ghost rises in the dark for a quiet soul like you, there are no survivors. The system wasn't just cracked. It was incinerated. By a whisper that turned into a roar, you didn't even have to speak. Now the world stares at you in horror. Not because of what you did, but because of what was done for you. Because of how many people you shook. Without lifting a finger, because someone, somewhere, saw the truth hiding behind your silence, and unleashed hell to honor it. They don't know who lit the match. They just know you were standing closest to the fire. and that terrifies them. Because they realize now, you're not alone, you're not weak, you're not harmless, you're the type of person the world should have protected. But instead they provoked, and now you've become legend, not because you screamed, but because you didn't have to. You became myth, not because you made noise, but because you made impact. You became dangerous, not because you threatened anyone, but because people who loved you finally stopped being nice. So let them panic, let them scramble, let them wonder how the entire structure collapsed from one quiet corner they overlooked. They forgot something. They forgot that every system, no matter how cold or calculated, was built by people. And people are emotional, people remember, people bleed. They forgot that pain builds armies, that silence is a language of its own, and that some of the most dangerous movements on Earth begin with a quiet person who simply refuses to fold. And you never folded, not when it got dark, not when it got lonely, not when it got ugly. You held your ground, and in doing so, you woke up something ancient, something ruthless, something righteous. Now they're watching buildings fall, friendships collapse, lies unravel, because someone dared to stand up for you. And the irony? You never asked for it. You never needed it. You earned it because you were never trying to destroy them. You were just surviving them. And that, my friend, is what made you unstoppable. Now they're digging through ruins, trying to trace the fire back to its source, trying to make sense of how the hell it all collapsed overnight. But they won't find fingerprints. They won't find blueprints. They won't find your name written anywhere. Because you didn't lift a hand. That's the part that kills them. The most devastating blow didn't come from vengeance. It came from loyalty, from energy, from some invisible force that decided, this one doesn't suffer alone anymore. You became unreachable, not by climbing over them, but by outlasting them. You wore your silence like war paint. They thought you were mute. You were just strategic. See, they thought you were a ghost. But ghosts don't burn cities to the ground. Gods do. And someone out there, maybe many someones, saw the god hiding beneath your skin, saw the way you clenched your jaw and held back every word you could have weaponized, saw how you were built from trauma and tempered by isolation. And they said, enough. Enough of the disrespect. Enough of the smear campaigns. Enough of watching you shrink so other people could feel big. Enough of letting the wolves eat while the lion starves. So they flipped it. Not for attention, not for clout, but for you. For the truth that dared to walk this world disguised as a human being. Now it's quiet again. But it's a different kind of quiet. It's not the silence of suppression. It's the silence that follows a storm. The silence of people afraid to speak your name without trembling. You're no longer the misunderstood one. You're the reckoning. You're what happens when a good person runs out of room to endure. They look at you and say, how did we miss this? How did we let this happen? But you know. They weren't looking, they were mocking, they were measuring you against versions of themselves, and found you too quiet, too strange, too much. But the ones who know, they moved mountains in your name. Because you're not for everyone. You're for legends, for forces, for those who see beyond masks. Now don't you dare look back. Don't you shrink. Don't you apologize for surviving in silence. You didn't just survive. You endured with style, with honor, with fire in your soul and chains on your tongue. And still, you never said a word. You didn't have to, because someone else set the whole system on fire for you. And when the smoke clears and they ask what happened, just smile and walk away. Because the loudest voice in the room was the silence they couldn't kill. And that silence was yours. And now look around. They can't unsee it. They can't unhear the silence you wrapped yourself in, because it was never quiet, was it? It was a storm disguised as stillness, a scream without sound, the kind of silence that creeps into the bones of liars and burns in the lungs of traitors. They called you quiet? No. You were calculating. You were subtracting dead weight, dividing distractions, and adding pain to the tab. Pain they would one day be forced to pay for. With interest. You didn't have to lift a hand, because someone saw the nights you broke alone, the days you stitched your mind together with invisible thread, the betrayals you swallowed whole without choking, the loyalty you gave and were crucified for. And they didn't just feel it, they lit the fuse for you, not out of pity, not for vengeance, but because they knew what you were. They saw the blueprint of your destruction laid out by cowards and opportunists, and they set the whole structure ablaze. And now the game's different. Now your name is whispered where it once was buried. Now your absence feels like a warhead. You didn't beg for justice. You became the reason justice had to evolve. Your silence dragged secrets from high places. It infected the system with guilt. It turned eyes toward shadows. It made them question if maybe they were on the wrong side of you. See, you never needed to prove yourself. The ones who tried to break you only proved your power. And when the smoke cleared, the world saw you were the fire, the ignition point, the warning they ignored, the lesson now etched into every cracked wall they once built around you. They tried to exile you from your own legacy, but someone dragged your name into the light and demanded the world pay attention. You never asked for a war, but they gave you one. And when the fires die down, when the system's ash settles into the wind, one truth will remain. You never said a word, and yet the world is screaming your name.